Well, hello, folks. This is James Arnold, your host of the Hawks Watch podcast. Welcome to our ninth episode, I believe. Um, we are about midway through the season for the Hawks, so wanted to get on here and give kind of a recap overall of what's been going on and do a bit of a deep dive on some of the players and just how things are going. I am having to record this in multiple sessions, so I think at this point I'm going to do a part one and a part two because I was also going a bit long. So this is going to be part one. It's going to be an overlook of the entire season so far. You know, really an overview of where we've come from, where we're going. I kind of do this review. That's really what this podcast is for, is to give people a snapshot overview, kind of let them catch up quickly with where the Hawks are, because not everyone follows them as closely as I do, and if it's an interest of yours, you can, listen to this podcast, get kind of, what's going on, and some analysis on what's going on with the team throughout the season and in the off season. So that's really what I'm doing again on this podcast episode. It's what the podcast is all about. Without further ado, I will play the intro music and let you listen to part one of this two-part episode. So also, Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Enjoy the episode. Thanks so much for listening. So the Hawks, like I said, have played 40 out of 82 games so far. Their record currently is 21-19. That is good for a tie. Is as 7th in the Eastern Conference. They are 1.5 games out of the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference and 3.5 games out of the 10th seed in the East. So the Eastern Conference is tightly packed. There's a lot of teams floating around 500. Honestly, the entire NBA is this way ever since, they've just been implementing more rules around, with the new CBA. It gets into some real nerdy stuff, but basically increasing competition between teams. It's not like the MLB where people can or teams can pay people however much and there's no cap, so a lot of teams stay at the top. It's not like that. It's much more competitive, and it's becoming more so, especially with the way that they've kind of changed the lottery system, and just made a lot of changes, making it more competitive, which is good for smaller market teams, to be able to, create, long-term, good teams, I guess is the way to say that. So, that's what's going on in the NBA. Is very, very competitive. Pretty much everyone is pretty good. There's very few teams that are just bad. I say all of that to say, the Hawks are in the middle right now in the East, floating around 500, as well as many other teams are. This is about where I expected the team to be midway through the season. They did start the season 7-11 through November 25th. It was a super new roster, and they had a bunch of new guys, so it makes sense. And I think I've said on this podcast, I expected first couple months to maybe not go super well. If you remember as well, they were dealing with a bunch of injuries, which, well, they kind of are again now, but they had just a ton of injuries. Literally 4 or 5 rotation guys were out for a large, stretch of those games. So started 7-11, and since then, since November 25th, they have won 14 out of 22 games. Only lost 8 games since then. That is good for a 63% win rate, well above 500. And I'm not saying that win rate is sustainable, but that would be good for the 7th best record in the NBA overall. So, very good team in the, that would be 4th in the East by a pretty sizable margin compared to Milwaukee, who's currently 4, and again, Hawks are only 1.5 games behind them right now. Again, I'm not saying that it is sustainable to have a 63% win rate over the season, but it does show you that, they've been more cohesive. They've been really playing a winning brand of basketball, and the main issue, honestly, is that dudes are hurt. It's been a really great season. I've really enjoyed it. They're a super young and fun team, and it's been nice to see. Nice, fresh change of pace from the last couple seasons where, I've chronicled this on the podcast multiple times, but it was just looking dire. There's no flexibility as far as roster construction. They, the team was not built right, and, I'm sorry to say it, but DeJounte did have to go for us to be able to move forward and forge a new path. So that's where we're at halfway through the season. It's been really impressive, and even more impressive considering Jalen Johnson has missed about 7 or 8 of their most recent games, and the shorthanded Hawks have been able to go 4-4, I believe, in those matchups. We're also missing DeAndre Hunter again, which is unfortunate. Hopefully that's not going to be too long, because he had been on a great stretch this season as well. But yeah, this is where I about expected them to be this far into the season. Really thought they were going to be, slightly above 500 team through the entire season. I think I, projected about 43, 44 wins on this podcast, before the season. And let's go back to the offseason. Many Hawks fans were upset after the DeJounte trade. They were like, they thought it meant we were rebuilding. We got this guy, Dyson Daniels. Apparently, no one really knew about him. Look at his stats. He's averaging 5 points a game. They're like, oh, what's going on? This is just terrible. We've got this terrible guy. Dyson Daniels has been first team all defense caliber player. He is one of the best defenders in the NBA. He is averaging an insane amount of steals. It's 3-point something steals per game, leading the league by far in deflections. He's a game changer for the Hawks next to Trae. I just can't say enough good things about that acquisition of Dyson Daniels and that trade that happened over the summer. That really changed the course of the future of the franchise. It was really what they needed in the retooling effort, and they're really, really trying to properly construct a roster around Trae Young and Jalen Johnson so that they can really compete in the next few years. They got better in that trade on the court and got draft capital. I can't stress enough how much they won that trade. So I'll stop going back to summer here, but it's fantastic, and halfway through the season it looks even better. This team is one of the youngest in the league as well, I want to mention. And so, being at 500, that is no you know, they're doing pretty good. I mean, Risacher is 19 years old. He is playing a real role. Dyson is 21. He has, this is the first time he's getting the opportunity for real minutes in the NBA. Jalen, even is young, 23 years old. And of course, Trae is 26 and, going into his prime at this point. This season as well, I'll go more over this later, but this is the best version of Trae Young that we've ever seen. He's taken another leap this year into just really doing what his team needs. I mean, when he goes off the court, the offense for the Hawks just craters. It just does, and the turnover rate skyrockets when he's off the court. He stabilizes and makes this single-handedly a really good offense, and then the rest of the guys really help make the defense work, and so it's just a nice winning formula for the team long term. Again, there are a lot of things to improve. These guys need to continue to develop. Like I said, they're young, but it's pretty encouraging, and Trae's having an insane year. If he doesn't get picked for All-Star, I don't know what to say about that. That is not the league has to respect what he's doing. It is truly elite. He's got to be top, 25 player in the league this year. Clearly an All-Star. I mean, he's just doing insane things. I'll leave that there. So Risacher, Dyson, Jalen, Trae. This is the core of the future. All of the other players on the team are, yes, valuable, but I would, argue probably not the part of the core for the future. Maybe some of them could be, but for example, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter, Bogey, Kobe Buffkin, Onyeka Okongwu. These are all very valuable guys, but can't be assured that they are necessarily part of the future. So when I talk about, how this team is one of the youngest in the league, I'm talking about Risacher, Dyson, Jalen, Trae, the core of what we have, and then the supporting characters around them. Those are, they are movable. I don't know long term that they're part of the future. I don't know that they're also not long-term part of the future. It's just there is question about that, and those are kind of the guys that can be mentioned in trades and have flexibility to be moved to continue to construct this roster over the next year or two into a contender. Some of those guys may be moved in the next year or two. I just cannot see them trading Risacher, Dyson, Jalen, or Trae in the next year or two. I've said it multiple times on the podcast, but this year continues to be about developing the young guys. I talked about, and so they can get more comfortable and prepare to really be a contending team in the next 2 or 3 years when Trae Young's in his prime. I'll move on to the deadline here. So trade deadline is February 6th. I am really not sure what may happen. Cannot speculate too much. The Hawks need a backup point guard and backup power forward pretty clearly. But it's also clear that, again, this is all focused on the future, what's going on this season. So they're not going to handcuff themselves for the next 2-3 years, make a bad move. It has to make sense from a long-term perspective, and I think that's the right approach. They're really prioritizing roster construction long-term, which has been major issue in the years past. You cannot win if the roster is not constructed around the strengths and weaknesses of your top players as it is a team. And they must be able to play together at a high level, complementing each other as players for consistent results. That it sounds very basic, but it's just true, and it's something that the Hawks have not always done in the past, from a roster building perspective. They were at a really good run in 2021, but then from there, their poor management of the roster is what led to the decline and, led to us needing to ultimately retool. The move to get DeJounte was, a misevaluation of who DeJounte is, and probably an overreaction to the Miami series. So, I say that all to say it seems like the front office has the right priorities and is really doing the right thing. So I have, confidence about trades that they make, and, where they're going with things. So, we'll see if anything happens at the trade deadline. Really don't know. If they do anything, I'm expecting it to be, either marginal, or if they do trade a big player, it's got to make sense for the future. So we can't just sacrifice future for, near-term results this season. That's not what this season is about. Yes, we want to make the playoffs. We want to win, but it's about the future. We're clearly not a contender this year, and that's not really the goal. So, I'll move on from that. But I am going to go through a deep dive as well on the four core players that I had mentioned, and I'll talk more briefly about the other guys on the roster, where they stand, and then we'll wrap up with an outlook to the remainder of the season as well. If the audio does change here, I am having to record this in multiple parts, most likely, so apologies on any change in the audio quality. All right, moving on to a deep dive here on Trae Young. So I am going to go over a bunch of statistics that I've kind of compiled for him, and like I was saying, he's just had a pretty insane year, very elite, and I'm going to show you that through the stats. These are just numbers, data from the games, can't dispute it. So I know, and I say that because there is somehow so many people still that, disrespect Trae's game. They don't think he's a good player just because he's, maybe the not the best defender, even though he has gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. Yes, he is 6'1", small point guard. There's many of those in the league. They don't seem to get picked on. Kyrie, Dame, Steph, it seems to be particular to Trae Young that people just say he's not a good player because of his defense, and they clearly don't really watch the games. So I'm going to go over some numbers, show you how elite he's been this year, and then we'll move on to Dyson, Jalen, and Risacher. So just the regular counting stats for Trae: 23 points per game, 12 assists per game. Stopping there, that's pretty crazy. 12 assists per game. This hasn't been done since John Stockton in the 70s, I believe. So, been a while since someone's able to do 12 assists per game. I don't personally like looking at just the counting stats. They tell you nothing about efficiency, how the team does, on the court versus off. So I'm going to go a lot deeper here. Some, may say I'm going way into the weeds, but, if you follow along with me, you'll, everything that I'm going to say does have a point. So I'm going to go over the advanced statistics True shooting, this measures how well a player shoots the ball. It's calculated by considering 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and free throws. So combines your overall shooting efficiency. I like this metric a lot better than just normal field goal percentage because, again, that doesn't take into account where you're taking your shots from. Is it from 3? Is it from 2? And it doesn't take into account, how often you're getting to the line. So true shooting tells you, a combination of all those things and can show, truly how efficient you are shooting the ball. So when we look at that for Trae, it's about league average, around 55-56%. So it's league average. He's not an inefficient shooter, despite what a lot of people think. He's not well above average. Yes, he's a 6'1" guard. He takes a lot harder shots than most other people and takes a higher volume. So you wouldn't expect that to be some crazy efficient number. He is a point guard. So, yes, pretty good on efficiency, despite what a lot of people think, just looking at the regular field goal percentage. So true shooting, efficient shooter, assist percentage. This is the percent of the time that the player makes a shot off of his assist. And he's in the 100th percentile for that. So basically he's best in the league when he, passes it to someone to have, an assist attempt. Basically when he passes it and they shoot, how often are they making that shot? Well, it's 46% of the time they make the shot. Again, that's 2s, 3s, and that's 100th percentile in the NBA. He's basically the best in the NBA. People finish after he passes it to them. So, offensively, we're already seeing he's very good. On-off stats, let's go to offense. The differential with him on the court versus off the court is plus 7.7. What that means is the Hawks are 7.7 points per 100 possessions better on offense when Trae is on the court versus when he's off the court. That is an 86th percentile number. Expected win. This is, and a lot of these stats are from Cleaning the Glass. It's, a little subscription I pay for. It basically goes over, it compiles all of the data from statistics and creates very, just a lot of stuff you can look at on there. So they developed this expected win based off of on-off numbers. So Trae is, plus 19 a season. So what that means is that's basically a difference, if he was with the team between a 50-win team and a 30-win team. So, over the course of the season, having Trae Young, Hawks are expected to win 19 more games than if they did not have him. And that is 95th percentile in the NBA. So not a whole lot of players that have an expected win total, that they increase for their team more than that. They're, 95% of people are below Trae on that. Team effective field goal percentage, he is in the 86th percentile. So when he's on the court, team is a lot more efficient on offense, and he's better than, 86% of the players in the league at making their team more efficient. Team turnover on versus off, 95th percentile. So when he's on the court, they don't turn the ball over very much. When he's off the court, it's honestly a disaster. And if you watch the games, you'll see this. The offensive process when Trae goes off of the court is really tough because, again, they don't really have a backup point guard right now. And even if they did, it still would be worse, but be better than it is. So he's 95th percentile in that stat. Offensive rebound rate, 76th percentile. Free throw rate, 87th percentile. as far as the, we want to look at the defense here. I'm not, ignoring that. The opponent's point possessions when Trae is on the court versus off the court, they do score 1.6 points per 100 possessions more when he's on than when he's off. And so that, what that means is, okay, we looked at the offense, 7.7 points per 100 possessions when he's on the court versus off. And if the defense is plus 1.6, so basically the Hawks are better than the other team, 6.1 points better per 100 possessions. So that's still a very good number. Including offense and defense, they're a much better team overall, and really, they're not much worse at all defensively with him on the court versus off. So again, it's a misnomer that he's just a disastrous defender and that you cannot win with him. That's been so overblown. It's been what people have been saying since the draft, and it's just not true. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of the type of season that he's having, and is truly elite. And without him, the Hawks would be a bit of a disaster. So good to have him on the team, and I hope that the large segment of Hawks fans that continue to also not appreciate his game, hope that that percentage of people decreases in the future, because he's a really good player, and he deserves some respect for that. So he's having a great season. I'm going to move on to Dyson here and go over some stats for him. I'm going to have to cut this episode a little short here. So I've decided to do two parts here. So Dyson, Risacher, Jalen, the deep dive there, that'll be on a part 2 episode. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get to recording that, but wanted to get this out to you guys, and hopefully I'll have the part 2 up in the next week or so. But hope you have enjoyed this deep dive, and it's given you kind of an overall or an overview of what's been going on. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll have part 2 of this episode up here in the near future, so stay tuned. And again, thank you for listening, and take care.